I'm Associate Vice President for Strategic Initiatives in Office of Public Affairs. I am part of the team that works on Columbia Community Service. I believe two of my colleagues are also on the call, Deborah Sack and Joan Griffith-Lee. We lead a program and initiative called Columbia Community Service, CCS, and we provide resources, grants, and supports for nonprofits geographically located in Upper Manhattan, most likely in the West Harlem area, or providing services in that area. And we've partnered with the Nonprofit Management Program to provide these wonderful workshop series to support our nonprofit leaders. So thank you for joining us virtually today. We'll have information about our next one, which will be on May 21st. I turn it over to my colleague, Lonnie Ryan.
Hi, thanks so much, Sheba. I am the interim program director for Columbia's MS and Nonprofit Management program. I'm excited to see so many of our students and our alum here, and so many CCS grantees and people who are active in the nonprofit community here in Upper Manhattan and around the world. It's very exciting to introduce my colleague, one of our esteemed faculty members, Jessie Lee. And since we have such a compressed time today, I'm just going to bounce it right over to Jessie and let her kind of take the lead and take us through today's session. Thank you so much.
Thank you for spending this time with me today. I really appreciate your time, because I believe one of the most valuable thing one can give is a time. So I appreciate your time and attention. So let me just share my screen and then sort of get to what we want to do. So I'm going to try to be very to the point and addressing these 4 different items. Basically, I really love to connect what are the things you can do as an organization, as a people who work within the organization, in terms of how do I use the data and metrics, impact measurement are the keywords, hot topics everywhere. But what do we do as an organization? We have a limited resources. Limited resource includes not just the funding, but also limited time and energy and attention is very limited. With that constraints, what do we do? So that's why I wanted to give you a few practical stuff that may, you can walk away from today's session to say, oh, I can do that. I can do, if you walk away with a 1 or 2 action item that I think I can try with that particular action when I go back to my work or my project or my program. So that's what I like to do. So my background, very quickly, I spent a lot of years in financial sector, public sector education. I've done from technology and data, risk management, making better decisions, or the strategy, finance, and many different things. So I've been around the block a little bit, and currently I teach a social impact and performance measurement course in nonprofit management program. It used to be data analytics metrics, and I'm also alum of Columbia SPS. I have a master's degree in enterprise risk management. Is another connection. So I love Columbia community. Anything that I sort of engage with anyone from the Columbia is something that I value each time. So moving on. So first thing I wanted to really just set the stage is what is data. So what I did is just literally went to the a basic definition of what is a data in the Webster. So keywords here is a factual information, but it could be based for a discussion or a decision and a reasoning. And it also is a digital information that can be processed and managed. And sometimes they are redundant, sometimes may not necessarily meaningful. And this is where we're going to talk about some of those. What does that mean for the organization? So because of data, not every information and data is relevant, sometimes redundant. That actually, what it means is that it poses a risk, or it poses a cost, not just a benefit. So the balancing act of what do we do, what is opportunities that we can do better and more and easier, versus what are the additional a cost and a risk are we taking or not taking. So that's something we're going to talk about that So before we even get to more detail of it, one thing that I wanted to bring your attention to is that in a simplest way of looking at the data of any organization, profit, nonprofit, small, big, doesn't matter. Any organization has a data, and then I'll go through what defines the data a little bit further in terms of format. But whenever we say data and information, the rule of thumb that's been defined by Gartner is one of the large consulting and research company. One thing they have done research and found is that most of organizations, they have what they call structured data, 20%. Unstructured data is 80%. This is sort of a general rule. Generally speaking, this is what it looks like. Each organization may be different, but if you have just a rule of thumb, what do we have and what are the things that we can call it structure, unstructured? So the 20% and the 80% is what they normally will say. If you ask anybody in data management profession, and that's what they will say. What it means also is that when I say structured data means in a table format, in something that you can actually feed it into the system doing analytical work, or something that a data table or file, CSV, Excel file, they are organized in the rows and columns and define a format that they can be easily aggregated, disaggregated, and used to do any simple or complex analytical activities. That's what the structured data means. And then unstructured data is everything else outside of that. So it could be PDF, it could be text message, it could be audio and video, it could be social media posts. All those are data, but they are not structured data. So going back to what I said earlier about 20% is a structured data, 80% is usually that's what we can start with, and each organization may be different. But that's but what does it matter? Well, what do we even care about structured and unstructured data? So what, right? So but what it means is that if the information and data are structured, then that's easy to searchable. It's easy to search content. It's easy to process and analyze, gain insights from those data sets. Or you can easily find the relationship, or you can find the trends of things. So there's a benefit. You can take it out from the data. Is the process will be much easier, simpler, and get it done and efficiently get it done. Whereas unstructured data, you may not necessarily know all the unstructured data that's available in your organization. Do we know it? Where are they? Who has access? All those things. So these are the things that may create a inefficiency, may create a lot of question then answer, may create additional risk around privacy, that kind of thing. So this is why understanding what structured, unstructured data is a important part of institutional knowledge. So I'm gonna, I'd like to do a quick poll. And Lonnie, if you can launch the poll. Question is, I think Lonnie, the other poll, if you can do it, this will be the later. So we can start with that, actually. We can start with that. So based on what we just quick, brief definition and description of structured and unstructured data, what would you say? What would be your guesstimate? What would you say? What kind of data do you have within your organization? Or if you're not part of organization, any projects and programs you work with, you were part of, if you can just estimate, what would that look like? I'm gonna stop sharing. Okay. Lonnie, would you be able to share the response? All right. let me see if, it's share by host. Okay. So it looks like, let me just, share my screen again. It looks like a lot of people. I have a 33% of the answer says 20% is structured, 80% is unstructured. So it looks like there's a lot more unstructured data is part of your organization or your program. So that's something I think getting into more clear understanding is that your estimate is correct or not correct, and then let me just go back to so that you at least have a more clear, a comprehensive understanding of what do we have, what we don't have, and what do we do about it or not. And that in order to make a decision, you need to know what you have first. And this is where it starts, is that what kind of data do we have? And is it structured, unstructured? And what do we do with it? And then that we get to a little bit more. Before getting to a little bit other more practical items, I also wanted to just quickly go through it without going to the deeper details, right? You probably heard about, let me just stop sharing very quickly. Have you guys heard about a data-driven versus a data-informed? Data-driven culture, data-informed culture. Anybody has any thoughts on that? Have you heard of it or not? So so what a really simplest format I can share is that a data-driven is more the decisions or action, the course of action is based on more closely 100% based on the data, versus data-informed decision is a data is part of the decision-making information or discussion, but other things, institutional knowledge, personal experience, personal judgment, and all those things, it becomes especially the institutional knowledge and experience becomes a part of the data decision. So sometimes people will say we should be data-driven organization. That's one way to really change organization where data is not being used not much at all, but you do want to bring the data as a part of a conversation and part of the decision-making process. Then they will actually try to make a more data-driven organization rather than data-informed organization. But ultimately, the ideal state would be it should be data-informed organization where data is part of a decision, but also part of the institutional knowledge should be incorporated in together, and the balance may be very different from organization to organization, but these are the two distinctive sort of a data culture or a data management that you could, how do you use the data within an organization? So there's a data-driven, data-informed. These are the quick two different distinctions. So the first item that we had in there was, how do you create grant proposal that actually speaks to, are we being effective with our program? So to get there, there's a few, I just came up with a few key questions. So these are the questions that probably a lot of grant application, when they say, show me how you are making a difference in the community and population you're serving. What does that look like? So these are the sample key questions that really speaks to how do you do it and what does that mean for the community you serve? So these are a few simple questions, right? Who are they? Why do you do what you do? And what are the activities to what population? And what are the actions that delivers the impact of that population? What are the things that you may actually have results? They may not. This may not be necessarily the grant application, like the content you like to put it in, but something that I think is important for the organization to know, so that there's a certain thing out there work they did that actually create a negative impact or negative outcome. So that's something to know, even if it's not necessary for the grant application content. But the other more practical questions is also, who's doing these? What are the skill set do we need? Do we have tools and systems? And what are the technologies necessary? What are the and then also, is there any environment factor that involves into these programs that we are planning and executing and delivering? So these are the key questions that you wanted to really be able to answer with the context, but also with the data and metrics. So in order to do that, one of the things I know we have a very limited time, so we can't really spend a lot of things together, but I'm sure you have heard of a theory of change versus a larger model. So without going to a whole bunch of details, basically the gist of, in a very simplest way to explain, is that theory of change is really explaining why you do what you do, and how the activities or interventions will create changes in the world that you like to make a difference. How you're solving the social challenges and issues that you are trying to make a difference in that community, in that population. That's articulating that, defining exactly what that looks like is a theory of change. A larger model is that, how do you actually make it happen? What are the things that goes into in order for you to execute those activities, those intervention actions? So another way to look at theory of change is really justification. Why do we exist? Our mission is saying we want to create a better future. And but better future is not there yet because of these issues. This is why we exist. The larger model really breaks down each components of what it takes to do that and deliver that. So one of the these are the sample template, one of the sample template of larger models. The theory of change is a long process. It takes a lot of time and energy to figure it out. It involves many people within the organization to do that. If you don't have a dedicated time to figure that out and hire a consultant, and you don't have a budget and time and energy to do it, minimum, you can actually start with a larger model. That's why I'm going into this, showing you there's a simple format of a larger model template. So you can break it down about when you're planning a program activity for each year, or towards the end of the year or beginning of the year. What are the things do we need? And input would be the resources. It could be people's skills. It could be location. It could be money. It could be other equipments. And those are, what are the things do we need in order to, what activity? The activity may be a training session. Activity may be counseling session activity. So defining what those activities are. What are the things that you want to get out of it? Outputs are usually a quantitative items. So number of hours, number of sessions, number of participants. Outcomes is usually is describing what changes, what impact do we make to that particular group of people, particular group of communities. So do they learn a few new skills? Do they feel a little more confident about certain areas, things like that? And impact speaks much bigger picture of directly relate to an organization's mission. Are we trying to better solve the inequity in education? How do we do that as we are providing arts education, for example? So that you can actually break it down very specifically. What does that mean when we do this particular program? And another, a little more complex than this, a template that you can use to sort of document what do we do and how we do this a program activities is this is another component. You can add another additional layers to it. So external factor may be the policy, public health policy may impact providing in-person a training session, for example. That could be another one. Or you can even break it down the outputs in activity versus what kind of participation we're trying to deliver is another way. So that's something, if you start to filling out the content of each box, sometimes it's not easier to do it from the input left to the right. Sometimes actually it's easier to do it from the right to left, because that's usually what happens when you try to write a grant application. Is you start with, what did we do last year that we can prove we have done it, therefore we'd like to get a grant for this upcoming year. You may actually start identifying and documenting all this from the right to left. If that's actually too cumbersome, it could be, then you can use a simple way of reversing the outcome in this way. So as I said, you could do how do we help those group of people in that community? This is outcome. What are the specific things we were able to deliver through those activities, but what did it really take? So you can actually reverse that if that's much easier, because you were thinking back what happened last year and year before. So when you do that, if these are not well documented, it's not centralized a location that you can easily access, then this could be a conversation. It could be a conversation during your program planning a workshop or planning a meeting. And when you have a program team, you can talk about all these things. Where is it? And some of those information may be in annual report, because you may actually have a metrics in annual report. Some of it is in past grant application. Some of it, you may actually get insights from other organizations with a similar programs. How do they articulate what they do, what the outcome is for that population? Is that something similar to us? So you can actually, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can use what's already here exists within your organization, but also outside of your organization. What are they saying? And then there's a lot of studies and reports out there from many different resource organizations. Candid is a good one, Nonprofit New York, or even Urban Institute and Aspen Institute. There's a lot of organizations that provide. And same thing with the Rockefeller or Ford Foundation. They have a sort of research body. They have a lot of information and data that you can refer to. So that could be another help that you can get. So, and you can start this kind of exercise or documenting information in this way with a program or one of the key core activities of a program. You don't have to start for entire organization, all the programs. You can start very, very small and tactical level to identify, and then start to actually organize information about what you already know, what you already have in this format. So I'm gonna actually pause for a second. Is there any questions?
We actually have a question in the chat, Jessie, I think it's from Daryl Williams. Is it best to keep a running sheet of these numbers and data points, or perhaps just keep an updated executive summary or on a one-sheeter?
So this is something I just came up with, and then I'm going to talk about what this is repeatable and define all the stuff. But one thing that I started to think about, what are the specific tactical actions that you could do, today and tomorrow? So one thing that is simple action, very it seems as simple, but it's not. It has a much greater impact. Is really thinking about simply organizing folders of files and documents and data into one location. Because you may, if you're using a Google, or if you have a network a network folder structure. And one simple exercise you can do is to say, can we create a one folder that has everything about program metrics and data? Even when you do that, be sure to make sure that, do we have a duplicate file someplace, copy of something? Or do you don't want to move the files from the original location, program folder location, then create a shortcut, rather than creating another copy files, so that there's no duplicate all over the place. Now is creating more chaos. So organizing folders and files, documents in a location that easily that you can go in there to say, this is everything about program, a impact metrics and data. If we go there, that we can either find the actual documents and files, or we can actually find the links to where they are. Do that simple action. It is gonna streamline a lot of headaches. But the other thing is the other thing that I recommend people to do is create an inventory list, almost like a checklist. What types of data do we have, or what program? Bullet points. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. Simple bullet points about this is the types of data we have, this is the types of metrics we have, and this is a link to that particular document there is. So create an inventory list. When it gets too cumbersome, it's better to use a Google Sheet or spreadsheets. But when it's still you haven't done it yet, you just want to start someplace, then create a Word document or Google document, start to creating an inventory of program information and data metrics that I can easily find. These are the description, these are the location, and then have that inventory ready so that you can actually refer to it as a sort of a roadmap, or and then you have a centralized folder speaks to all those actual files and data resides in there. So I'm gonna pause. Does that answer your question there all?
Yes, it did. It did. It did. Thank you so much.
Of course, of course. Is there any other questions?
So, Jessie, I'll do a follow-up question. So when organizations are thinking about some of the key questions that they may be asked when they're filling out grant applications, how should they be collecting this data? Where should they be aggregating? How should they start to think in a proactive way as they're fulfilling their missions, as they're running their programs? Is there an easy way? I know there's no easy way, but what's the best way for them to start to collect meaningful data so that they can use it for
Right.
grant writing, for fundraising, to do these data informed decisions that you're talking about? What's the first step? Do they create a Google Sheet? Do they create an Excel file? How do they begin to collect this data?
Okay, so I think let me just share my screen again for this particular slide. This might be meaningful, right? So these are the things I actually thought about, question you were asking, Lonnie, and because I was also, work for organization, a small organization, and that was the biggest challenges I faced as well. So I think there's no simple, easier one or a few steps to get it done that way. It takes time to do it. So it's gonna, if you have to make first thing is that you have to know what you have. So let me just go into the takeaway of, right. So this is actually, this was my last slide, but I'm jumping into it because you're asking a question. First thing you have to do is that you need to know what you have. You need to gain understanding of what kind of data and information do we have about our program and speaks to the impact. Even if it speaks to the impact is a email from someone gave us a really positive impact we made for their family and their group of a community. Where is it? How? So understand, what do we have now? So creating that inventory, going back to the inventory, what do we have? And start, even if you don't know where they are yet, you can even start documenting. Where do we have it? Start writing them down. I believe in documenting what you have, and then communicate that information to rest of your team. To say, hey, for about what we do and the types of impact, the impact maybe the metrics. Sometimes when you write a grant application, they're asking how many people participate in your workshop, and how many times did you do it? How many hours did you offer counseling? All this stuff is also part of your application. The clients submitted, or it could be the survey you have done it for the program before and after or during. Where are they? So itemizing, literally creating a bullet point of everything about the information that you normally go back to look at when you create a grant application content, and then say, these are the types of information and data I use in order to craft my grant application content. Documenting and itemizing, you'll be very surprised when you start to itemizing and communicate, and then share that with the rest of your team to say, this is what I think we go back to look at when we create our grant application, when they ask, or the reports they ask. This is what I look at. These are types of information I have. Do we have everything? Is there anything else that was not documented? You may uncover the information that you didn't know about. So collectively, you need to gain the understanding of what do you have currently in-house. And then documenting that and communicating to the rest of the team, to whoever gets involved in writing a grant application, or the program team who plan and execute, ask them about those. You may know you may have a survey that they may have a survey you didn't know about. So pulling in all that information together, or the evaluation, a consultant who came in a couple of years ago and gave you some information that could be used. All those things, you have to put it together, create one inventory list of what do we have, so that you can actually share that with and make it a little more clear about comprehensively, this is what we know, this is what we have. And it doesn't matter whether it's a file that was not clean and edited, whatever it is, trying to make it a one inventory together and document that, right? And then that would be the first thing. And then if you can identify the source data, survey results is a good source data. Where is it? Do you also have other application do you use? If you use other platform to get an application through, then can you download that information and look at it? Is that any other than, do we have other, what other application and platforms do we use currently? And does everybody know about all those applications we use? Is there data we can pull it off from that speaks to the program or experience and context and success story, all those stuff? Where is it? And how much is it? So making a judgment call of where we have it, what type of content can be actually translated into the success story and the context of the metrics that we can deliver. All those things needs to be actually a putting it together. So first step is really gaining full understanding of what we have currently now and creating it and documenting them. Lonnie, does that answer your question? That would be the first step.
Yeah, I think that's great. And then I think, once you begin to gather this information, making it publicly available, and to your point, kind of creating this single source of truth within the organization, so that you don't have copies of data points that aren't being updated, that everyone thinks are being updated. So just kind of creating that kind of clean system. And I'm sorry we kind of took you off track. I know that you wanted to kind of talk about data privacy and data security. So I don't know if anyone has any other questions, or if you want to dive back into your presentation. And as Sheba mentioned, we're going to share the whole presentation with everyone afterwards. So, and Jessie will be sure to share any other thoughts that kind of come to mind, or questions or resources that she goes over. So thanks, Jessie.
Yeah, so what you're welcome, Lani. So yeah, interrupt me anytime. So these are the other questions about what do we do now, and how do we do the things we do, right? So the back to the theory of change is why we do those activities, program activity is a theory of change, but you have to also dial it down to say, how do we do what we do? And so these are the questions that you should be asking. More likely you have some sort of metrics. What are they? Whether those are effective metrics or not, that's a later question. But for now, what are the metrics do we have currently? And besides collecting the information, but what are the metrics? Even if a simple metrics, a demographic is information. So do we actually do the metrics, statistics around the demographic or the location? What is the metrics do we have? And have we ever used a benchmark data or studies or reports from other institutions, other foundations, anything at all? Do you have historical data? Is a historical data actually is helpful for us to let us know how to scope our activity, program activity, or not do this year, but we will do next year? Or does that help us to figure it out? Do we expand the program activity this year, next year? Which area, which group of people? So the historical data, you may already have a historical data. Historical data could be a survey results from 4 or 5 years ago. Is that helpful? You may have application data from 2 or 3 years ago. Is that helpful? So that kind of data you want to know. And then the other thing is that just like creating an inventory of what types of information and data you have, you also want to create an inventory of application platforms that you use as organization. You'll be very surprised what are those applications. Not everybody is on top of their mind what we use. The application, whether you think there is a data involved or not, everything involves a data. Basically, if you start with that, everything involves a data, then any application you use, Google's types of social media, types of donation platform, or anything at all you wanted to, even including the a grant application submission platform, Salesforce usually when they use, what are those? So coming up with the inventory of a application platform you use is another good way to go indirectly figure it out. Oh, what kind of data do we have? Okay, could we ask for that information on other organization because we submit that information? Things like that. So that's something is something to do. But one thing that without spending a lot of times, I wanted to just quickly talk about how is data usually in the world of a data management. They will say, how is it collected? How is it cleaned up? Where do we store it? And how do we analyze it? How do we deliver? Delivery is the analyze and delivery. These are the two boxes where you turning the survey results or application information into the metrics that you wanted to use. So this is usually how it is. And then the other thing is that in terms of how we do things, are we being efficient about the things we do with the very constrained, with the many resource constraint? Are we being efficient of our time and energy and money? So that's where the operational maturity comes into conversation, is that do we do more reactively, or do we do a little more planned then execute? So there is if you are being a little more structured and organized and streamlined, you will be able to get to the more efficient process of what you do. And then there is a consistency you can deliver. So that's where these framework is really talking about. How do we understand how we collect information in similar format so that we can aggregate the data? So that kind of conversation could happen. So this is one good thing to just keep in mind, to say, where are we as an organization? Are we being more a proactive and plan and execute so that we can easily repeat certain things without thinking twice about it? Is that something we can train someone else if we hire easily? Is that something that it gets really difficult and cumbersome if you have to train somebody because how we do things is not clearly a document and defined, we cannot easily find information. So that's something to that's why I was talking about. But going back to I got 2 minutes, so going back to I don't think I can cover the policy, the data privacy policy, but going back to the more simpler activities you can do. These are the things that you can even thinking about. Once you organize the folders of a data and files, next thing that you also wanted to think about is who has access to those files and folders and data? Do they have a view, edit, comment, the commentator access? This becomes one of the sticking points sometimes when people, especially when people leave the organization. That includes a staff member, volunteers, and board members. When they leave, if the file's owner was the people who already left, then how you can manage that file gets a little trickier. So you need to define who should be the owner of the file before people leave the organization, who should also have access to view only, edit. The program management team should not have access to all the financial data there is for the organization. It should be based on their roles, responsibility, who should have access to view, edit, and change, and who should be the owner of the file. That has to be clearly reviewed, and you can start with a one folder of documents belong in a one folder to say, is this old document necessary? First of all, should keep it or not keep it? And is this too old? If you keep too much of a data and information file, when you don't use it, you have no idea what's that for. You never use it. You don't know who has access to. You're actually creating additional risk of a data breach and then that could be additional risk losing that particular data. Blah blah. There's whole different things that get into problems. So and then also storage as well. You pay for the storage. If you have a large storage space that you need to pay for, then that's another thing. So I think just managing simple access to the files and documents is gonna be deliver a lot better efficiency of who's doing what and when kind of thing. And then again, one thing to remember is that a staff member, volunteers, board members, whoever you're sharing the files and documents, you should clearly think one more second to say, should this be a view only? Should this be a edit only? Edit or commenting on the document. Thinking about just taking a couple of seconds of pause to say, what level should I give this a person to share this information? And then the other thing is there's a lot of settings, and even if you use a Google, not your own network, there's a lot of settings you can put it in. Should it be downloadable? Should it be restricted? Should it be not restricted? Can this be expired because it's a financial information of the expenses and budget information? I don't want it to just be out there all the time. Simple features, these settings you use make a whole world of difference. So I'm gonna stop from here. These are the few practical things. Gets to more a manageable environment of your information and data. I'm gonna stop. Any questions?
So Jessie, I was wondering if we could, I think we have enough time, if we could kind of go into the good governance issues around data, hygiene and privacy and all that.
Gotcha. Let me cover the privacy and then I'll talk a little bit about policy versus procedure, right? So let me do that. Let me just do that. And that will be part of the governance that we should care about. So I just wanted to set the stage. That's why I have these definitions. The policies are the organization level, a guardrail of what are we doing about certain areas and activities, and what are the official views of issues, and therefore these are our rules to follow. So the policy provides guidelines and the parameters of what to do, what not to do. Often you will talk about what not to do. Procedure is sort of a pair with the policies. All policies should have a simple or complex procedure about how to exactly do those activities. If certain things what not to do actually happens, what do we do as organization? What do we do as a staff member when that happens? So the procedure policy goes in hand. If you do create a policy and publish then you don't have a procedure, or at least idea of if the what not to do happens, what do we do? If that's not defined, you're actually creating additional risk for the organization, saying you said this is what we're gonna do, but you have no idea how to manage it. Then you're creating additional risk for the organization and creating it ultimately may lead it into a bad reputation of organization as a not effective and managed organization. So that's one thing to think about as why the policies and procedures could be something that you want to pay attention to. So the part of the organization governance is a key part of the organizational governance is actually having a right policies, right procedure that's been communicated, that's been trained by all the people who's involved. So many times the policies are created because of regulatory requirements. But the other really the benefits of a policy it allows the people to be more consistent on certain activities, and it also cultivate a much more safe and healthy organizational culture, and sometimes the physical environment, because some policies speaks to the physical space, and this also leads to organization to manage their service quality better, because it's all spelled it out what not to do, what to do. And another key part of the policies and procedure along with it is that who's going to be responsible, accountable for something were to happen, something were to not happen. These are the action, these are the decisions, and these are the information to share, all those things. So accountability is another thing. So that's why its policy is important. Now, within that, since we're talking about data of organization, data is a source to identify why we do the things we do, but this is how we being effective with our program to deliver that why we do the things. So part of that is data is essential, the source to get there. But we have all the data, and the key, the one of the hot topic about when we talk about impact measurement, then data therefore is a privacy. Often, I think most of organization now has a donor privacy data. But privacy is not just for the donor's data, but the privacy of data of your clients, of your staff members. So the privacy, it matters to all the stakeholders. Sometimes your contractors may have access to the data. Do you have an exact guideline for what the contracts are supposed to do? How do you manage their access? What do they do with the data you share with? So you need to really thinking about the privacy as beyond the donor's data, but what are the stakeholders internally, externally that you interact with that shares information and data and files a regular basis? What do we do with it? And so if you have a donor privacy data, could that be updated and changed to add to address other stakeholders, other types of data as well? Do you have that? If you don't, you can really do everything, but at least start with what are the key stakeholders within the organization or key stakeholders of your program? Do we have a data about those clients, the community you serve? Do we have a policies around it? Do we have a procedure around it? What does that look like? By the way, all this is information is out there already. Many organizations already done it. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You get you go leverage other organizations with a similar programs or the other learning resource and learning organization. Get the template and see, can we modify this to fit it into our clients' information? Can we modify this into our contractors, volunteers who we share the information? We have their data that we can share. So that could be also done. So when you think about that, one of the things I think is important to think about is identifying who are the stakeholders. And who are and then those stakeholders, what are their roles, responsibility, and what types of data they have access to? Therefore, how do I create a guardrail around it? What's the behavior that we wanted to help them going to the right standards we want them to follow? And part of that is do you know what type of regulation do we need to compliant to? A domestic, in state as well as a federal level. If you have other clients from other state, does that make any difference? If you have a medical information or a health related information, is a HIPAA is irrelevant to us? Anything at all? So that just start with start with a program. If you really don't, it gets really overwhelmed, then who are the stakeholders? What types of data do we manage and use and share and then collect? Then start with one program, component of program, and see who are the stakeholders that we need to think about the privacy and how are those stakeholders or sharing and have access to the data, that what are the standards or rules that we need to provide to them so that they don't not intentionally, but sometimes intentional, but sometimes unintentionally share the information they should not have, or they download it to their laptop, they're at home, and then they forgot about it, and then that their laptop get lost and hacked. Now all your clients' information get exposed. What do you do? So things like that, sometimes unintentional, a data breach happens, and your job, the governance structure of your organization can start to address those what if, and start with one program, one key component of a program, and then who are the stakeholders, what are the roles they do, therefore these are the area we should be worried about worst case scenario. So that's one. And then also when you do figuring it out, how do we put the guardrail and what are the language, what are the additional scope of the current privacy policy we need to add? Talk to your team, talk to your volunteers, talk to your contractors, talk to your other partner organizations, talk to your colleagues in other organizations with a similar program. Ask them a question. How did you do that? Did you do that? So don't reinvent the wheel. People have done it and people are doing it. Use their lessons learned, how they did it, leverage that to make it simpler. Because I think one of the key that I want to really focus today was really that you need to worry about efficiency of how you do the things. You already know what you're doing. Well, why we're doing things is clear, but how do we do the things so that we can be efficient as possible, so that we can get the maximum results from the limited resources we have. Limited resources, not just the funding, limited resources, your time and energy and attention. All right, I'm gonna stop here. Any questions? I hope this is helpful. If not, I would love feedback. Many times a more negative or constructive feedback is what I'm looking for. Is anything at all, let me know. Then this is for me too. That will be my chance of learning about, oh, I didn't really deliver what's really necessary, information or knowledge. So please reach out to me. Let me know if anything at all that I can do better and different if I do something like this again next time.
Jessie, thank you so much for all this knowledge. I mean, so much useful information, so much to unpack, and I know there'll be a lot of follow-up questions. So when we circulate the PDF of your slide deck, we'll be sure to include your contact information so people can reach out. On behalf of the Nonprofit Management Program, I just really wanted to thank everyone here today and thank my partner in all this, Sheva Keys, and let you share any last thoughts, Sheva.
Just to thank you, echoing Lonnie. Thank you so much for taking some time this afternoon on your lunchtime to join us. And we look forward to seeing you in person on May 21st. We'll send out information.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you, Jessie.
Bye. Thank you, guys.